Welcome to episode 2 of Project W, where we're taking you on a journey to create more opportunities, sales, and growth for your business using Walmart.com. We're showing you how to sell your Amazon products on Walmart.com using these same simple methods. I'm Carrie with Helium 10.
And I'm Tim Jordan with Private Label Legion. And in this episode of Project W, we're going to show you exactly step-by-step how to get your Walmart.com account opened and started. So in last week's episode, we gave you a list of questions you have to ask yourself if it's a good time for you to go to Walmart.com. But in this episode, we're actually going to give you the exact list of how to get started. Now remember, Walmart's unique in that they are pretty particular about who sells on their platform. They have a pretty big list of requirements, and we're actually going to go through right now the list of qualifications that you need to have in place, ready to go before you even start this process.
Yeah, and the reason why we want you to have these things ready to go is because you can't actually start your application on Walmart.com and go back later and save it. You have to have everything ready to go and submit it all in one process. So make sure you take notes of these qualifications so you have them prepared for when you do the application process. The first thing that you need is a U.S. business tax ID, and this is not your social security number. The next thing that you need is a W-9 or W-8 and EIN verification letter, and this is an official letter from the Department of Treasury that verifies your legal business address.
So all of that means that you actually have to have a physical business entity set up in the U.S. This does not mean that you have to be located in the U.S., but you do have to have a physical business address. You're registered with the government, you're paying taxes, and the letter that we talked about is important because you may be issued an EIN as soon as you set up your company, but until you get that physical letter that shows the business address, it's very important, that legal business address, you cannot continue, so make sure you have that. The other address that you have to have is a physical operations address. Now these are two different things. Myself, I have several business entities that are set up in different states like Wyoming or Florida, but my physical business operation is different. The physical operations address that Walmart's going to want you to have is related to shipping and logistics and fulfillment. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just make sure that those two can be separate. They don't have to be the same, but they are two separate things.
The next thing that you need to have is a plan for your listing creation and product upload. We'll go more in detail with this in a little bit, but you basically need to know, are you going to do an API integration? Are you going to use the back end of Seller Center on Walmart? How are you going to upload those products?
After you get through the rest of this episode, you should have the answers to that question that you need to have, which is your plan for those listing creations. The next things you're going to need to know, which you probably should off the top of your head already, is your primary product categories, how big your catalog size is, how many SKUs do you have, all of that related info, right? The UPCs or GTINs associated with those. You're going to need to know all those. The last thing that you really need to have prepared before you get started is an understanding or realization of what type of products you're going to sell. Is this going to be used, new, or refurbished? Now, this case study, remember folks, we are specifically talking to you as an Amazon seller migrating your product listings over and your sales over to Walmart.com. If that's the case, you should be a private label seller selling new products. Now, many of you are also selling arbitrage. You might be selling used stuff or refurbished stuff. That's fine. It's very, very easy to figure out if you're selling new, used, or refurbished, but it's something that they're going to ask you in these steps.
Walmart.com has high standards for their sellers, products, and brands, which is why the application process might seem a little bit more challenging and the barrier to entry is a little bit more difficult than other marketplaces that you've applied to in the past. We want to make sure that you are accepted to Walmart.com, so we want to make sure that you understand what they're going to take a look at when they're looking at your application so that there are no surprises and you can easily get accepted.
So one of the first things that Walmart looks for and requires is a history of success on other marketplaces. Walmart is not somewhere that you can get your e-commerce journey started on. This can't be the first place that you go and the first place that you load products. It's just not. Now, that may be a little frustrating for some people. I actually love it because that barrier of entry that Carrie just talked about means that we are going to have less competition, which we talked about on episode 1. The way that they're going to check that history of success is by looking at your existing sales channels. You'll see in a few minutes in the application process, they're going to ask you for your Amazon storefront. They're going to ask you for your Shopify URL if you have one. They're going to ask to look at your eBay sales. There's a whole list of places that can look. Don't be worried. We don't believe that Walmart's asking for nefarious reasons. They are literally just checking to make sure that you are an experienced seller because that's one of their requirements.
The next thing that Walmart's going to take a look at is whether or not your products enhance the Walmart catalog. So they don't want to see carbon copies of all the same products going up on their site. So that doesn't mean you can't sell a common item or something that's already up there. You just want to differentiate somehow or make your products stand out a bit more so that you're more likely to get accepted.
The next thing that they're going to want to see is competitive pricing. There's no point for Walmart.com to accept you if you bring on products that are just ridiculously overpriced and nobody's going to buy them, right? If there's no conversions and there's no sales, there's no success for the sellers or for Walmart themselves. Now let me talk about pricing for just a second. We're speaking to you, the Amazon seller that already has an Amazon listing set up. When you migrate those listings, those products or inventory over to Walmart, you may find that Walmart is less expensive to sell on than Amazon. The fees are lower, the PPC may be lower. You may actually determine that for the same profitability or the same margins, you can have a lower price on Walmart, which lets you compete against everybody else. Don't do that. And the reason for that is when you signed up to sell on Amazon, in the terms of service, you agreed to never list your products for a lower price on another platform. Make sure that you pay attention to that. So make sure that pricing is level across the board. Now that being said, when you load up your listings and your inventory into Walmart.com, don't jack up your prices because you're the only person in the catalog selling that product. Don't think that you can get away with that either, because Walmart wants to make sure that their buyers are happy, coming back for more, so they do demand competitive pricing.
The next thing that Walmart is going to look for is whether or not you have fast and reliable fulfillment. So when we go over the application process, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that process, but you want to make sure that you have a history of fast and reliable fulfillment. Walmart wants their products to get in the hands of their customers as soon as possible. So that's really important for the whole customer experience for them. So make sure that you have that completely squared away before you apply.
Now let's talk again about your physical address. We mentioned it earlier. The reason that Walmart.com wants you to have a physical address where you can ship to and ship from is because they are very particular about your capabilities to fulfill products. Now, Walmart has Walmart Fulfillment Service. They have the partnership with Deliver, and they have these third-party fulfillment options. But if all of those go by the wayside, if they get turned off tomorrow for some reason, Walmart wants you to be able to ship yourself. This is why that physical address is so important. Now, for the majority of us, that's going to be a 3PL or third-party logistics center. It's going to be a warehouse. It could be multiple places. But in the due diligence, looking at us as potential sellers, they're going to make sure that our physical address isn't the 12th floor of the apartment building that we live on in South Beach, Miami, right? Because obviously we can't fulfill products in and out of there. So make sure that it is a legitimate business address for the purpose of being able to fulfill products if you need to.
The last thing that you want to make sure to have is excellent customer service. So the way that Walmart takes a look at this is they go to the other platforms where you're already selling, and they're going to take a look at your seller ratings as well as your product ratings. So if your ratings are low and there's a lot of complaints about your products or your service, I would recommend that you make sure to improve those before you apply to Walmart.com, because that's probably going to be a reason for you to be rejected. So make sure that you have all of those ratings up and squared away before you even get started.
Another thing that you have to have for customer service is the capability to communicate quickly and efficiently with your customers. Walmart's unique in that they want us communicating with their customers, which is different than Amazon. So you'll see later on there are some requirements, like they want you to have a phone number that your customers can call, that if you don't have a voicemail set up, you're immediately able to answer it, or you answer a voicemail within a certain period of time, you answer emails within a certain period of time, things like that. So customer service, very, very important. So in summary, there's a big list of things that Walmart.com looks at for you particularly to make sure that you're going to be a good fit and that you're going to do a good job essentially selling on Walmart. Those things are the nice catalogs, the great customer service, having experience as a seller, and the capabilities to fulfill and ship products yourself if you have to. So if you've got all that in place and set up, then you're ready to actually start the application process. Now we're going to jump down to the screen here and actually walk you through what those individual screens look like so that you have an idea of what to expect.
Okay, so we wanted to give you an idea of what the application looks like so that you know what to expect. So we've got some screenshots of the application. And remember, like I said, you can't go back and save, so we have screenshots and not an actual live walkthrough here, just to help you out. So the first thing you're going to need to put in is your name and also your email address. So choose the email address that you want to use as your business email address in this, and also your title. The verify reCAPTCHA, make sure you do this. I had to do it multiple times when I was applying, so make sure you take care and do that every time that you go through a different section.
So this next screen pertains to all the legal stuff that we talked about with your business. This is your W-9 or your W-8. This is your EIN. This is your legal company name. Now, if you look at this, most of this is pretty intuitive. There's a couple things here. One is the DBA, the doing business as. If you have an LLC and you're doing business as separately, like maybe that's your Amazon business, make sure you list that. If you do not have a separate DBA, just make sure it's the exact same as your legal company name. So your legal company name and your DBA are going to be exactly the same. Your state of incorporation, that's the state where your business entity is based. Most of us are not going to be publicly traded. The tax ID, of course, is the EIN and the year that it's founded. And they'll actually go back and check that and make sure it all lines up with the Department of Treasury. This other section here on the bottom left is the DUNS number. That's the Duns and Bradstreet number, which a lot of larger businesses and a lot of older businesses in the U.S. have. It's not required. Most of us probably don't have a DUNS number, so you can just leave that blank.
All right, this is just a blow up of where you attach that form. When you click upload files, you need to click also upload attachments so that it actually goes through. So make sure that you do that or else it'll ding you there.
And there's two different documents there that you have to bring. It's the W-9 or W-8 and that official EIN letter from the Department of Treasury. Upload those there.
The next section here is where you put your legal U.S. address. And this is actually the address that's on your EIN. It's connected to that, and you want to make sure to put all that information here, which is pretty straightforward. So the last question, it says, does your business have offices or warehouses outside of the U.S.? Yes or no, so just answer that honestly.
This next section is a list of categories that you can select if you sell in them. Now, we think that this is just an archaic list that Walmart used to prioritize maybe when Walmart.com started several years ago. If you don't sell in one of these 5 categories, just leave those blank and go on. This does not mean that you have to be selling in one of those 5 categories to sell, though.
Okay, so the next thing is you're going to want to put your average online revenue, and this is for all the platforms that you sell on. And we want to make sure that you're really honest with this because they do have ways that they can check and verify your actual income. So make sure that you're honest and as accurate as possible there. The next thing is you're going to select your highest performing category based on revenue. So easy, straightforward there. And remember when we talked before about having your catalog, all your information about your products ready to go. So if you have that list of products ready to go, you can add in your catalog size easily right here. So just the number of products that you have, that does not include in variations. It's just the specific products. The next thing is you're going to want to put on there the percentage of your SKUs that are refurbished. Most of us probably won't have refurbished products. And then also the percentage of SKUs that have a valid UPC code. Now you want to make sure that you have all of your SKUs with a UPC code.
So that should be 100%.
And I would recommend that you own the UPC codes too. I know a lot of people have purchased secondary UPC codes, but you actually could lose your listing if you do not own your UPC code. So make sure that you get that all squared away as well before you put your products up on Walmart.com. And then the last thing is what percentage of SKUs are used. And again, it's probably not going to be any for most of you.
All right, so this is where we see Walmart starting to gather information about your past selling experience to go back and check up and make sure that you are a legitimate seller. So there's a drop down to different marketplaces here. Everywhere that you sell that's in this drop down, select it and you can keep adding more information. So you can add Shopify and Amazon and eBay and multiple. Put your marketplace seller name and put the URL to the marketplace. Make sure that you're putting this in correctly because if they click on the URL and it takes them somewhere else, they're just going to start rejecting your application and assume that it's not valid. The other question here is talking about integration plans with Walmart. Now, most of us are going to just upload our products through Seller Center, right? That's the kind of seller-facing portal that you'll see a lot of here in a little while. But they also have some other options like Direct API and solution providers. Those two options are typically used for very large brands. If Reebok said, hey, we want to load 500 listings or 1,000 listings, they're going to use a solution provider or an API. That's not what this is. Go ahead and select Seller Center there.
The next thing is you are going to select your current shipping methods, and you want to select all of them that apply. Now, we don't recommend just selecting FBA because if you just select FBA, Walmart does not like for any of their products to be fulfilled via FBA. So make sure you don't do that. Make sure you also have another fulfillment method like US Postal Service, UPS, FedEx. So choose some other options on there that you can show that you can fulfill these in other ways.
And I think that everybody that's selling existing has some sort of account set up with stamps.com or a ShipStation that has USPS and UPS and FedEx blended in there. So I would select UPS, FedEx, and UPS. And also, if you are selling via FBA, go ahead and select that. We don't think it really matters, but make sure that you do. And then the second section here is your physical warehouse address. This is going to be either that 3PL or that warehouse that you own. This is where orders could potentially be fulfilled from if you're not using WFS or Deliver or one of those other solutions.
Something that we don't have a screenshot of is actually they want you to write up a reason why you think you would be a good fit for Walmart.com. And it's actually just a simple write-up. So if you aren't that great of a writer, maybe just write something up beforehand and have it all prepared before you start the application process. It's very simple. Just really just talk about your business and why you think it would be a great fit, why you have great products, and how they would add to the Walmart catalog.
A typical response for me would be a little bit about my business and a little bit about what Walmart wants to hear. So I would say something like, I want to sell on Walmart because I want to extend my sales channels and create revenue. I also want to create a better buyer experience for Walmart.com shoppers by having more selection in the products that they're looking at. And I want to be able to figure out how to drive more traffic to Walmart as well. So kind of give a little fluff in there. Just don't put anything really ridiculous, and it doesn't have to be too long. They're just, I think, basically making sure that we're serious about this by giving us one of those anecdotal questions.
Okay, so then once you finish all that, then you submit your application, and it usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks to hear back from them. Now, if 2 weeks have passed and you still haven't heard from Walmart, there's a few different reasons why this could be. And the main reason would probably be is if you've tried to apply to Walmart in the past. And this means you don't even have to maybe submit or complete an application, but just have that whole process started in the past. Basically what happens is your application will go into the system and it recognizes it as a duplicate and it just goes into no man's land. So that's kind of a technical issue that Walmart hasn't solved yet, but that's something to be aware of. It actually did happen to me. So I want to show you a way that you can actually open up a ticket to get this fixed.
Now, while she's pulling up the screen share to show you the process to open up a ticket and figure out why you haven't gotten a response, understand that the typical response time is 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks. If you get to 2 weeks and you haven't heard anything, don't panic, don't freak out. We suggest giving them 30 days, right? They could have had a big backlog, there could have been a holiday, something like that. So we would wait for 30 days, and if you haven't received a response at all, then we're gonna go ahead and open this ticket. And this is how you do that.
Okay, so the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go to sellerhelp.walmart.com/seller, okay? So this is in the seller help section. If you just Google it, you can usually find the seller help. The next thing you're gonna click on is support, okay? So click on the support button. And then you're gonna select a support category, and that is going to be password and other access issues. And then the next thing is you're gonna click on other access issue. So when you click on other access issue, it gives you the ability to open a case via email. So that is the way that you get around, not having a Seller Center account already. And that's usually the way that you're gonna submit a ticket, but this is the way that you open up via email. When you open up that email, you want to give them as much information as you can so that they can find your application and match it up. And I would recommend explaining that you have applied in the past and you think that that maybe the system isn't recognizing your application. Give your email address that you applied with, your name, all the information possible that you can in this email so that they have everything that they need to be able to find you.
And some of you that apply are going to get rejected, right? There's a lot of reasons that you can reject it. Sometimes it's legitimate, sometimes it's not. But you will be notified if you're rejected, right? We just talked about opening a case if you don't hear anything at all. Right now we're talking about getting rejected, in which you will receive a notification for sure. Now there's a lot of reasons, like I said, that could be, and it could be because you just don't have the requirements. We see a lot of people that don't have a U.S. business entity, or they're not accurately putting in their information. They're going to get rejected. But there's some other reasons too.
Yeah, just like Tim said, if you don't have accurate information that doesn't line up with your application, then that's a good reason why they're going to reject you. So you need to make sure, go back and check everything, do it with a fine-tooth comb, make sure that everything matches and your revenue is accurate, everything. Another thing is you maybe didn't have the address and that information accurate. So if you have the business address is mixed up, or you didn't put the correct one that you had, make sure to go back and specify that if when you do write an email to appeal this, that you accidentally put the wrong address in or whatever the issue is.
All right, now if you get rejected and you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that everything that you put in is correct and that you're completely qualified, you can go back through that process that we just showed you to open up a case and ask for a review. Now, in the comments section, make sure you spell everything out plainly. I applied on X date. I know that I went through and checked my requirements, the qualifications. I should be completely eligible to open up an account, and then explain the key points. Go through all of those things. I do have marketplace experience. Here's the URLs that I showed. Here's the fulfillment system and the upload process that I had in place. Here's a copy of my W-9 and of my EIN letter, and the addresses match. Like, go through this whole list that we just showed you. That way, if someone on the other side of this email reads it, they can't find a reason to reject you. They go, okay, it looks like everything's here. And then they can kind of step up the process, and they can maybe push this to somebody that makes a decision and figure out why this was rejected, because it could have been just a simple mistake.
So in review, we covered all the qualifications that you need to have in place before you apply on Walmart.com, all the things that Walmart.com is going to look at before you get accepted, as well as things that you can do if you are rejected or never hear back from Walmart.com. If you want to review the show notes for this episode or review all of the Project W episodes and resources at helium10.com/Project W.
So on the next episode, we're going to get into product and keyword research, one of my favorite things. So make sure to watch this next episode. We're actually going to show you the tools and the resources that we use to not only figure out what's being sold on Walmart, but what's being searched for on Walmart. We'll see you on the next episode.